We will definitely be keeping an eye on the storm that is brewing out on the East Coast when it comes to the White House and a government shutdown possibility. But let's talk about another storm that is brewing as well in the southeast. We are tracking Imelda right now. And let's go out to Savannah, Georgia, because that is where we find Fox Weather's Katie Byrne joining us here with the latest. Katie.
Hi, Mike. I love the segue there. Yeah, so we are tracking Imelda here. We moved over to Tybee Island to check with people on the coast. But listen, residents are breathing a sigh of relief because Imelda is expected to pass well offshore. But it was an interesting weekend because Friday, the forecasts were looking a lot different and preparations were underway over the weekend. Sandbagging sites opened up for people who wanted to prepare their homes for any potential flooding and gusty winds, which we've noticed the winds picking up in the last couple hours or so here along the ocean. But the forecast improved a lot on Sunday, and people were feeling a lot better about the impacts along the coast, which are really not expected to be the worst case scenario, which is what a lot of forecasts models were looking like on Friday. Things improved a ton because the storm ended up making a sharp right turn and is heading out to sea instead of making a U.S. landfall, which we saw models that were looking more like that earlier this weekend. So a lot better here now that we're on Monday. Still, residents were wanting to prepare their homes for any potential flooding we could see from this, especially coastal flooding here on Tybee Island. We stopped at a couple sandbagging sites that opened up when Emergency Operations Center was opened up across the county. We talked to people preparing their homes, but we also spoke with the firefighter who was running the sandbagging site here on Tybee Island. He said, you know, of course, it's always better to be safe than sorry.
We'll be a little bit more lucky this time. It looks like the storm's going to veer a little further off, but we're still expecting some pretty heavy rainfall, maybe some gusty winds, and of course the ocean is probably going to have some pretty strong current. This isn't the first rodeo for pretty much anybody who's lived here for a while. So, you know, they take it as it comes. Most people aren't really concerned about this one just because of what the forecast is saying right now, but everybody still wants to be prepared.
If anything, I think it turned out to be a good practice round for folks who say they really haven't prepared for a storm in this region, at least in a while. People said the last time they lined up for sandbagging sites was for Hurricane Matthew in 2016 here in Savannah area. So it's been a while, and I think people got those reps in once again. Some people told me that the sandbags they got, if they don't end up needing them for flooding, they'll use them to fill holes in the backyard. So there you have it, Mike. I think a sigh of relief for a lot of people here in the Savannah area.
Yeah, definitely a good sigh of relief there. And yeah, that sand could go to a lot of different places there. But Katie, yeah, I think there's been a lot of sigh of reliefs this hurricane season. It feels like, you know, in some hurricane seasons, it was like Florida and the southeast was just a magnet for these hurricanes to be coming. Every model would always be showing that it would be slamming in to the eastern seaboard. Not so much right now. And I know I got to knock on wood when I say that.
It's certainly an interesting hurricane season to cover. We have talked a lot about the rip current risks and dangerous surf that have been associated with these storms that have stayed offshore for the most part. So that will be something that we'll talk about for the rest of the week. I'm going to head to the Outer Banks tomorrow to see how big the waves end up getting from just the churning of the ocean. But beach erosion will likely be an issue there in parts of the Outer Banks. We've seen, you know, those abandoned homes. One of them recently washed away because of the rough conditions out there. So we are still seeing impacts from what's happening out at sea, but luckily no landfalls, which has been really great news for people who live along the coast and are used to preparing for storms.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Fox Weather's Katie Byrne, thanks so much for joining us on Live Now from Fox. We always appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
No problem. And here is the latest track right now that you can see. And that was what Katie was talking about there, all pushing off to the east right now. So that is the best case scenario for so many out in the southeast portions of our country.